Welcome to the Inspired Father podcast, where we celebrate the extraordinary journey of fatherhood. I'm your host, Wesley Rhoads. Join us as we bring heartfelt, empowering stories from fathers all around the world, the joys and challenges to the triumphs and lessons learned. This podcast is a beacon of inspiration for every dad out there. So let's embark on that adventure of fatherhood together and get inspired. All right, welcome to the Inspired Father podcast. Today I have with me John McGuire. John, thanks for coming on today. And if you would, just give us like a little 30-second intro about yourself, where you've been, your family, some interesting facts about yourself.
All right, it's my pleasure to be here. I grew up in South Carolina. We traveled a lot, moved all over the world. When I was a young adult, I joined the Army and was stationed in North Carolina. And after about 5 years, I left and went to college. That's where I met my wife, and at Brevard College in Western North Carolina. And we took a job down in Louisiana where I worked for pipelines. And after my second kid was born, we decided to move back home and kind of have settled in.
Home to North Carolina.
Home to North Carolina, and kind of settled in Belmont, right outside of Charlotte.
Awesome. Fantastic. So diving into the kids part, how many kids do you have?
We have two boys, one's 7 and one's 5.
All right. That's awesome. Do you have, and then you have brothers and sisters?
I do have one brother.
One
yes.
brother. Cool. So it's basically.
Yeah, kind of like history repeating itself.
Exactly. That's awesome. And what are your kiddos' names, if you don't mind sharing?
My oldest is John Paul and my youngest is Jesse.
Awesome. So you talked about growing up in South Carolina. Whereabouts was that?
So a town called Taylor's. It's kind of right outside of Greenville, between Greenville and Greer.
Okay.
So not too far from where we live now, about an hour and a half.
Cool. And then correct me if I'm wrong, but we had a conversation a while back about some of the things that you've done in your career thus far. And being a military interrogator was one of those.
It is
right?
one of them, yeah. So
cool.
I started with counterintelligence, and at some point about 2006, I reclassed as an interrogator.
That's super cool.
35 mic. I didn't use it too often.
We'll dive into that a little bit more later. But that's super cool.
Yeah.
All right. I like to start all these podcasts off the same way and ask you, what would your wife say when asked what makes your husband an inspiring father?
I'm going to be honest with you. I have absolutely no idea what she's going to say.
Oh, no. Not even a gander.
I'd be afraid to.
All right, guys. You're going to have to wait till the end.
I'm going to have to wait till the end.
Wait till the end to hear this one. All right, cool. With the military background, do you find that you have a mantra or an ethos that you follow when it comes to fatherhood?
Yeah, I guess your editor's going to have to do a lot of cutting out of my pauses here. That's okay. It's kind of loaded, because I guess the way I look at it is I want my kids to grow up and be able to survive without me. And I feel like that's what parents are supposed to do. I feel like I have a hard time seeing that happening a lot now, and we're trying to...
With your own children?
No, with like in our society.
Okay.
Being as somebody who works in high schools a lot, I run into young people who are afraid to do things on their own. Yeah. And I don't want that for my kids. So I try to push them to do things outside of their comfort zone a lot. One thing that I feel like my children have actually affected my career more than my career has affected the way I raise my children.
Interesting.
I think my kids have made me a more patient NCO than my time as a non-commissioned officer in the Army has made me more patient with my kids.
And explain to our non-military audience what an NCO or non-commissioned officer is.
Yeah, so an NCO, a non-commissioned officer, is a sergeant and higher in the enlisted side in the military. I'm currently a staff sergeant in the North Carolina Army National Guard. I do it full time. I'm a recruiter. It's my everyday job at this point in my life.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. So they've made you more patient
with my soldiers.
With your soldiers. That's fantastic. And especially lately, it's been a time that's very trying on one's patience. I could only imagine with all the different things that have affected us in the last, 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
It's been a roller coaster for
Absolutely.
everyone, but especially in the armed services. So they've actually made you more patient when it comes to work. And then it sounded like that you want them to be independent and able to kind of fend for their own, and that it's your job to mold your boys into men that are able to function in that capacity.
Absolutely. You have a better way of words than I do.
I'm working on it. But when you say you see other kids when you're out and about, like in schools, recruiting, that type of thing, what are some things that they're not able to, that you can identify them as not being able to handle on their own?
Just in my experience, it seems like a lot of people have created a situation where they do a lot for their children, where the kids are either afraid to make decisions on their own or don't want to. And I'm not just talking about like with respect to whether they want to join the military or not.
Yeah.
It just seems to me that a lot of, and personal perception may not be reality, but it just seems to me that a lot of people do almost too much to the point where the kids aren't learning how to do things on their own. Mm-hmm. And we experience that now that the kids are in elementary school. I feel like they're asking a lot of, it's not a bad thing it's not a bad thing that parents are more involved with school at all, but there seems to be more than what I remember, at least when I was growing up.
Right.
There's a little bit less independence on the child. It's a little bit more, it seems like there's a little bit more work for a parent to do than the child to do.
Yeah.
And to me, it just seems like they're not getting it. The kids aren't getting all of it.
That makes sense. Yeah, because as a parent, I would imagine I'm kind of comparing this to what I know, and I do a lot of, I've been in a lot of instruction roles. Currently, do a lot of helicopter instruction. And it's a lot easier for me to just kind of go around the student and like do something for them, but it's not doing them a service to do that for them. But that's kind of the easy way for me to do it, because it gets us to the next thing. But really, they need those repetitions on their own, while it might take a little bit longer. So I can only imagine that as a parent, when your kid comes to you with homework at the end of the day, or a project, whatever the case may be, mom and dad just spent possibly all day at work. They're tired. The easy route is to just
do it for them.
Do it for them.
Yeah. And you see that with like the Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, is that they do the Pinewood Derby, and you'll have a parent who obviously made a car for their kid. And of course they win.
This one went through a wind tunnel test.
Yeah. I feel like the kid needs to do it themselves, even if it's not as good of a quality. Like, they need to learn how to do that stuff, and they need to do it again and again and again, and learn that skill or that thing that they're learning in school. Don't let the parent, like, as a parent, I'm not going to do a project for my children. They're going to do it. That's and awesome. I will provide assistance and guidance for them, but it needs to be on them. And it is, sometimes it is hard, because like you said, coming home at work, sometimes it's just easier to do it. And we've caught ourselves doing that in the past, and still do. But you have to catch yourself and remind yourself that they're the ones who have to learn how to do this. They're the ones who have to gain that knowledge and everything.
That's all. Yeah, that's. I couldn't agree with you more on that. I love it. You have a very unique perspective in this, which you have younger children, but that you interface with a wide array of folks, whether they're have some degree of discipline, already being in the military but younger, as well as those like not on that path yet in a high school setting. And so I think this will be a really valuable conversation for a lot of our listeners, because you're going to be able to bridge a gap that I would say most fathers don't have these insights that you have. So I'm really excited about that. But that said, what do you hope that other men and fathers can take away from our conversation today?
I just hope that I can provide some sort of piece of valuable information. And I don't know that I'm doing things right, and that's something that I think both my wife and I struggle with on a regular basis, is that, we have made decisions on the way we're going to do things, and we have to hope that it's the right decision. And a lot of times you don't know for years down the road if you're doing something correctly or not. Right. We talk all the time about, what are we doing that it's going to give our children a complex one day. Hopefully we haven't done that yet. Yeah. I also do feel like, personally, I feel like fatherhood for me was a little, it wasn't something that I never wanted to do, but it was unexpected at the time when our first one came. And so I didn't feel like I was ready. And I feel like I'm just treading water, and on the inside, like I'm freaking out, but on the outside, like I'm trying to really make good decisions and be the example to my children and other people around me that can be helpful. So I guess the biggest thing coming out of it is that if you feel like you're doing the wrong thing, you're probably okay. If you're struggling with it, like everybody else is too, it's not easy.
You're probably in a good place, because that means that if you're like having those thoughts, then you actually care.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of men and fathers, whether they do or not, it seems like there's a lot that don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we can inspire some men to step up, and if they're maybe slacking off a little bit or completely step up and get in there. You've been listening to the Inspired Father podcast. This is Wesley Rhoads. I want to thank you for listening to this show. Value your feedback very much. So if you guys have any feedback for me on how we can be doing things better, that'd be great. Recommendations for people to come on the show, that would also be awesome. And then if I could ask, just have you all share this with one or two people who you think might benefit from the message. That would be much appreciated. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the rest of the episode. That said, can you identify anything in other fathers that like really grinds your gears, or you see as a shortcoming as fathers as a whole? I know we've already hit on the doing the homework for the child and that kind of thing, but is there any other items that you...
Screens, tablets, phones. I see a lot of other parents who use screens as babysitters. People need to spend more time FaceTime with their children.
I have FaceTime.
Yeah, right. Right, yeah, FaceTime with your kids from the same house. I'll be honest, both of my kids have tablets. It was something that we fought for a long time, and I know our kids are growing up in a very different world than I did.
Right.
And both my wife and I kind of struggled with how do you fit into this new world? And, when we were kids, technology changed a lot from the time that our parents were kids, but it was still, we had cassette players and CD players while they had records and stuff. But the world has changed from the time we grew up to the time they do, where everything is connected. They can access anything they want at any time. We decided when our kids were 5 is that we would get them their first tablet. That's their first like personally owned screen. Yeah. But we do severely limit them on when they can use it and for how often. I love it when my kid says he's bored.
What does that look like? Because a lot of people are going to hear that and be like, okay, cool. Well, what's John doing for his kids? Like, what is not too much?
Yeah, so zero screen time, including the TV during the week, Monday through Friday afternoon. Okay. None. That was something my parents did when I was a kid. 0.
Nice.
I used to hate it when I was young. Why can't I watch TV during the week? When I have kids, I'm going to let them do whatever they want. And now I'm a father, and I'm doing the same thing that my father did.
Right.
But we've also included the tablets in that. So there's no screen time during the week. Now, we have started to make exceptions for my 7-year-old. He's in 2nd grade, and they're focusing a lot on reading. Yeah. And we will allow him to use the tablet for reading assistance and stuff, because there's some programs on there that are designed to help kids learn how to read better. Yeah. And he's access to a larger library than the same books over and over again. So he gets exposed to more words and more sentence structures and stuff like that. So in that sense, the educational purpose, we've made some exceptions for it. Yeah. They use screens during the school day. Right. They've been using computers since kindergarten. So no TV, no tablets during the week, and then on weekends they're limited to 1 hour of tablet time per day, and the tablet will shut itself off. Oh, nice. We do make exceptions for that. If there's a hurricane and it's pouring down rain all day long Saturday, we'll end the limit, and we'll let them do it for a little bit longer, because they literally can't go outside and do anything else.
Yeah. Although I did hear once, there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing. Although I think there's a limit to that. That quote also came out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, where weather's not too crazy.
So going to college in Brevard, it rains all the time. Yeah. And so days like today, I'm like, I love it, because I throw on my chacos and some shorts and I'll just walk through the rain. Exactly. It's awesome.
All right, let's lighten it up a little bit here. Hit us with your best dad joke.
Okay. I haven't told this one to my kids yet because they wouldn't understand it, but it is one of my favorite jokes. How do you fit an elephant in a subway?
I don't know.
You take the S out of sub and the F out of way.
There's no F in way?
There's no F in way.
That's fantastic. I love it. All right, you guys heard it here first.
I love watching people's faces when they figure it out.
That's it. Yeah, that's funny. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've experienced as a father so far? This can be like directly with your kids, or potentially with spouse, or with your parents or her parents.
Our parents are great. I feel like I have to say that, right?
They're perfect.
They're absolutely perfect in every way.
However.
My biggest challenge as a father was when my kids were first born. I had a really hard time connecting with them. I'd never really spent much time around children before. I tried to avoid infants.
Wait, you were in the Army?
Yeah.
And you didn't spend much time around children.
Like actual small children.
I'm just kidding. Oh, not men that act like children.
Yeah, right, because that's different. I can handle that. I was just never good. I didn't know what to do with small children. My wife, she has a brother that's 6 years younger than she is, so she kind of got that experience as a kid, like learning how to change diapers and what kids need and all that. And I felt like when my kids were first born that all I could really do for them was change their diaper. Like I was like, I can't feed them. They don't want me. Yeah. They're more bonded with mom. It took me a really long time to do that. That being said, once John Paul was a little bit older, we bonded really well, and we did a lot of stuff together. We used to go out and walk around Lowe's and Home Depot. And when Jesse was,
what age was this?
So, 2, around 2. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there was definitely bonding happening before that. But by the time he could start walking around and sort of talking, I would take him and go do stuff just guy time. But when Jesse was born, right after he was born, we moved back to North Carolina. Yeah. Right after we moved back to North Carolina, COVID happened. Yeah. And so there was a lot of things that I did with John Paul that I didn't get an opportunity to do with Jesse. And I've always felt like we never had that chance. Plus, every time we did anything, John Paul was already there. So I never got a lot of one-on-one time with him. And that's always bothered me. I've always felt like I'm not doing him the same justice that I did John Paul. And I don't want that to affect our relationship later on down the road. So I do try to do extra stuff sometimes. Like I'll go pick him up earlier from school. It's hard now, they go to the same after school care. But I would pick him up early and just bring him home, and then he and I would hang out, or we'll do something, or I'll try to just do stuff with him separately so that he can have that one-on-one focus and stuff. But that would be the biggest challenge was learning how to be a dad in the first place.
I think you're not alone in that. That I've had some conversations with other friends of mine that are also fathers, and me being a new father with 10-month-old twins, it's tough because they really do need mom for a lot,
right?
And
you're just here
there's not a lot that you can do is except support mom.
You do a lot for mom during that first, especially for the first few months. It's like your job is more to help her out. I would say the second challenge that I have is, like I said earlier, my kids have made me a more patient NCO in my job, but not vice versa. And one of the things that I struggle with is I do yell at them a lot when I get frustrated, and I try to catch myself doing that and stop, but it's hard. And for me, that's the hardest thing, is to not treat them the way I used to treat my soldiers before I had kids.
I see.
So that's something I'm still trying to figure out.
Yeah. But would you say that there's a place for that level of energy being father? Like, yes, it's not okay to do that all the time, but like, you definitely get your message across when you hit that energy level.
Yeah.
Would you say that it's probably a negative thing most of the time right now, or do you think there is actually a place for it, and maybe us as fathers or fathers collectively maybe getting a little bit too soft?
Yeah, that's very possible. I definitely got yelled at a lot as a kid. Not as much as my brother, but yeah, definitely, because like you said, there comes a time where that point is needed. One thing that we've been dealing with recently, especially towards the end of the summer before school started, when they didn't have a lot of structure and stuff, is that I was finding myself repeating the same thing over and over again, and they're either not responding or not listening and everything, and then you get to that point where you have to get loud and really take their attention away from what they were doing. And then as far as if they're in trouble, they're gonna get yelled at.
Yeah, because otherwise, if there's really no consequence, then I would imagine that it could spiral out of control. But at the same time, you don't want to verbally abuse your children.
True.
Right?
Again, like I said,
there's a fine line, and there's also an energy behind it too. Like, you can raise your voice, but still be coming at them from a loving place. If that makes any sense. You're not coming at them from a place of evil when you I hope not. or have to raise your voice with your kids. And so you've mentioned a couple things that lead me to believe that you probably have a pretty good work-life balance. And if not, you're very intentional about making sure of that by spending one-on-one time with your kiddos, and as well as getting what you need to get done, and then as well as the time to spend with your wife and the rest of your family. Yeah. Do you think that you've got a pretty good work-life balance?
It's really hard. I have to make it a point.
Yeah.
Especially in my job. I was told when I started recruiting that it's a hard job. It takes you away from your family a lot. Prior to that, working for consulting firms on pipelines, I was in the field 15, 16 hours a day. And so I was already
MMA at that point?
I was, yes.
Okay. And so that's the weekend.
Part-time, one weekend a month.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So I was already spending a lot of time away from home anyway. And with this job, even though the hours are going to be long, it was going to be an opportunity where even if I was doing late work, I was going to be able to do it from home.
Right.
But I have made a point in the few years that I've been doing this to really draw a line. Mm-hmm. And when I first started, it was, you're trying to build a program and all that kind of stuff, and you got to work really hard to get there. And as I've gotten through it, I've been able to pull that line back some. And for the last year or so, I've really had a pretty strong line in the sand about when work ends and when I'm with my family. Mm-hmm. But I have to work constantly to make that happen in order to continue to do that. Because it's really easy to fall back into, well, I just need to do one more thing. Yeah. So I'm pretty strict with myself about where that line is and when I have to to spend time with the family. I keep values cards on my desk. I don't know if you ever saw them when you were in my office, but
I don't think so.
I have there's a stack of little just cut out pieces of paper that are values, things that are important to me, like service, and and one of them is family. And every morning when I get into the office, I'll flip the card over, and I try to like find a way to fit that value into my day. And I love it when I get the family one, because then it's my excuse to like, all right, well, I'm really not that busy today. I'm out here.
Yeah.
Don't tell my bosses that.
No, it's okay. They'll hear it on here.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll all listen. So that's really cool. And another, we've already talked about like work-life balance, and then a little bit of your like what you do. But has there been like a specific lesson that you've taken from your job in the military that you've been able to apply very well to fatherhood?
I really don't know.
Okay.
I think I've been in the military so long, and it's been part of most of my adulthood was shaped by my experience, because I started out when I was 19.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure there's a lot of lessons that I've taken that I've now applied to being a father, but it's just most of my life has been influenced by that decision that I made when I was 19.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to pinpoint.
Can't pinpoint an exact one.
And well, moving forward, you've had a really good career thus far. What does it mean when it comes to your family life to leave a legacy? What does that mean to you? So
I would like my kids to know that I did what I did for them to better our family. Mm-hmm. I think it's the opportunities that I've had because of what I've done in the military have been super helpful to get me and my wife and them where we are today. Mm-hmm. I don't know that we would own our home had it not been for the benefits that I received from my military experience. I wouldn't have had my education that I have had it not been for the military paying for that. So I want them to understand that there's value in the things that you do, and hard work gets you those benefits. So if you just expect things to be handed to you, that's not going to happen. You can't just sit there and wait for things to fall in your lap. You actually have to go out and earn the things that you have. Yeah. And I hope they see that, and I hope that I'm able to teach them that as they grow older.
Yeah. So, and as to those points, is there like a yardstick or a measurement that you could use for yourself, whether it be now or like you could foresee yourself in the future, kind of saying like, okay, like my kids at this level, or like I can see that they were able to take these lessons away? Or is there, what metric can you use, or do you use to keep tabs and measure your success as a father? Yeah. Or do you?
I think, like I said before, a lot of things we're not going to find out for years whether or not it was successful. Sure. I think as long as they are productive adults, that'll definitely be like, okay, we did okay. Things that I want for them are, I want the two of them to have a better relationship than me and my brother do. So that would be one of those metrics. I want them to be successful in their families and their careers and their lives, regardless of what they decide to do later on in life, as long as they're okay, they're happy with the choices they've made, and they're able to take care of themselves and their families, then that would definitely be one of those metrics as well.
For sure. And then like how quickly they can start a fire in the woods. That should be another metric. You're very skilled when it comes to the outdoors, and it sounds like you go way above and beyond when it comes to trying to pass those skills down to your kids. So I'd love to dive into that here in just a little bit. Sure. But you mentioned something about having a good relationship with your brother and hoping that your children have a good relationship with each other.
That they have a good relationship with each other, because I do not have a good relationship with my brother.
Gotcha.
And that's always something that's bothered me.
Yeah.
I've tried multiple times. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's to the point now where we don't communicate.
It's a bummer.
It is.
So are you like hyper aware of things with your two sons that you're like, okay, this could spiral. I need to like nip this in the bud. Okay.
Probably detrimentally.
Okay.
So if they start arguing with each other or they're fighting a little bit, like I'm immediately in there and be like, stop, y'all are best friends. I do also find myself projecting some things that my brother did as a child onto my youngest. And that's not a good thing. And I know sometimes I catch myself doing it and sometimes my wife catches me doing it. Mm-hmm. But things that he does, he's a second child. Like there's there's commonalities between second children. And so
I'm a second, but middle child.
But middle, so that's even different, right? Yeah. So there's things that he does that when we were children, my brother would do that I worry about, and it's pointed out to me quite often that that's normal.
You're right. It's hard to know, right? Now you have like an incredible sense of work ethic, and it sounds like you're really trying to push that onto or not push it onto you, but hope that your kids learn from you. But with that work ethic, you're like, stuff won't fall in your lap. Those discussions that surround like getting things that you want, do they have an understanding of like what money is at this point, being 7 and 4, right?
Yeah, 7 and 5.
7 and 5.
Yeah.
Sorry,
we just turned 5 like 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so 7 and 5. Do they understand the concept of like what money is?
The 7-year-old.
Okay.
To a point, and again, that goes back to when he was younger. We had one-on-one time, and so he and I started. I taught him about money. I would give him $1 or some change for doing different chores around the house. And then he has they both have piggy banks, but John Paul, my oldest, has an actual like bank that lives in my safe, and we'll pull it out, and if he wants to empty his piggy bank and add it and like make a deposit in the bank, then we'll do that, and we'll count it and add it to it. So we've been doing that for a few years with him.
Wow.
So he does have a concept of money. He's starting to get a concept of the value of it. Okay. Because we've had some conversations about, well, just go buy it. And well, you can't just go buy something. And he's like, well, I have money in my bank, and then we'll go look at what it costs, and we'll show him how much he has in there. And he's starting to understand that things are affordable and things are not affordable, and you have to save longer for it. Mm-hmm. One of our failures is that we've not really done to the same level with the younger one that we did with the older one. And that's something that we probably need to start pretty soon.
Do you think that it's something that the older one may have a grasp of enough at this point that he could teach it to the younger one?
To a degree. He probably would want to be involved when we were, like if we emptied Jesse's piggy bank and we're starting his bank, John Paul would probably want to be involved with that. He's good with numbers, so counting money is good with him. Like he excels in math in school. Nice. So he really enjoys that kind of stuff. And they are kind of opposite in that, where my younger one is definitely leaning more towards the reading and word side of things, like his mom.
Okay. Really cool. Yeah, that's kind of the best answer I've got around like the money thing thus far.
I mean, I like yours. Like when you and your father were talking about sitting in his lap looking at spreadsheets.
Oh, my head was passed out on the keyboard. It was like AAA or space in that cell on Excel. But no, that's really cool because it sounds like he's getting like a full concept of it. Whereas mine, I feel like was a little bit advanced, a little bit early. So.
But you're probably better off for
it. In the end, right? And then, as far as values, we've talked about that, hard work, discipline. Those are some things that you want your kids to take away. What about when it comes to like relationships with you and your wife? And then what do you hope that they will model forward when it comes time for them to start dating, and then eventually, I mean, we're talking way down the road here, but
way down the road.
Yeah.
As far as what they take away from it is to treat people with respect. You know, my wife and I we're partners in our relationship. We share the different responsibilities and burdens of being parents. You know, I don't dictate what happens around the house. You know, she does, but we're partners with a lot of stuff. Like we discuss a lot of things that we're doing with the kids, and so I feel like one of the things they need to see and one of the things they need to do is just be a partner, and treat people with respect and be honest and communicate and things like that. Nice.
Yeah, and so they can model that after you and your wife's relationship. And then you talked about you all discussing things. Does that discussion ever happen in front of them, or is it usually behind closed doors?
Most of the time behind closed doors, but sometimes it does. It's hard, you know.
They're pretty
young. And, you know, when they're really young, you just have whatever conversation you want in front of them. And then at some point you figure out that they understand what you're talking about. So you still have those conversations, and then they're like, oh, okay. And we're getting to the point now where, you know, if you want to take them for ice cream, you can't spell it anymore because they're starting to figure that how to spell certain words and everything.
Gotcha.
You got to be super secretive.
They get amped up.
Oh.
Speaking in code.
Yeah.
What's the, I forgot, like you need the encryption, like the second part to make
the key.
The key, yeah, to make it all work. And so let's dive into your relationship with your wife, and as a husband surrounding fatherhood. Like, I know you said in the beginning it was really tough for you, just feeling like you couldn't connect with the child, or in those early stages, like it's hard because they need mom. Do you feel like anything? Obviously, things shifted with your relationship because you add a child into the mix. But what were some of those challenges that maybe caught you off guard whenever starting fatherhood with your wife?
How little time we get to spend with each other, that alone time. True. And it's very important, and we have to make it happen, but we do make it happen.
Yeah.
My wife and I are best friends, and we always have been, like pretty much from the time we met.
Yeah.
And we do a lot together, and when it was just us, it was really easy. We did a lot of stuff together. Once the kids came, that changes a little bit, but we definitely still have to make time for that.
Yeah.
Like we'll let the grandparents take them for a weekend, and
there you go. And
we'll be super excited because it's our weekend, and we'll go back to just the way it was before. We'll go out to dinner and we'll hang out. We don't. It's not like we're doing anything special. We still end up at home at 8:00 at night.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it's just nice to have that time with her, and to be able to go to spend that time with her without having to worry about them or take care of them. And so yeah.
And then do you guys? I know you're really into like camping and that type of thing, and you guys do that as a family. But do you and your wife ever do that? Just the two of you?
Yeah, it's been a minute since we've gone, just the two of us.
Okay.
We did the last time we went by ourselves was probably in 2021. So 2.5, 3 years ago. It was great. I loved it. I might have liked it more than she did, but
you were getting right into my next thought. So a lot of us guys love like the outdoors, camping, that type of thing. But oftentimes our significant other may enjoy it, or say they enjoy it in the beginning, but then over time, maybe it gets that enjoyment becomes a little less and less.
It's more work.
Is your wife like intrinsically like camping, or is there anything that you can do to make that experience a little bit better for her to be like, hey, camping's not so bad?
Yeah. So
I think this would be really valuable for a lot of our listeners.
Absolutely. Present company included.
Yeah.
So our idea of camping has evolved over the years. If it was up to me, we would be throwing backpacks on and going on a 10-mile hike out into the middle of nowhere and spending a few days completely alone in the woods. But I learned pretty quickly into our relationship that my wife does not enjoy backpacking multiple miles up mountains and stuff like that. So we've kind of evolved to the point where we started going to car sites with air mattresses, and now we have a rooftop tent that we put on the back of the truck, and we're looking at trailers and stuff like that. Now, especially with the kids, they've really enjoyed it. They've really taken to it. Again, they've kind of come into it with the car camping aspect of it. So it's not like it's a lot of work for them.
Yeah.
But it's to the point now where as long as we're in a somewhat civilized place with a bathroom nearby, then I think everybody's pretty happy.
Nice.
So that's what we've been doing.
So the rooftop tent, and then now looking for that trailer.
Yeah, because she doesn't like climbing out of the rooftop tent in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom.
That makes sense. But I imagine that she understands that this is something that you find very important, and there's a lot of values that can be taught out in the woods around a campfire that can't be taught at home when like TVs and tablets and other distractions, school, right? You take somebody out of their environment, and then sometimes messages get conveyed a little bit better. So I imagine that she's very supportive, just because she knows that this is a really good thing for her boys. Yeah, absolutely, and she does enjoy it. And so when we go out there and we're in the woods and we're hanging out, like she does have a good time for sure. She just doesn't want to hike there and
very far
and live there for like dig holes in the ground and
that's not the part that she enjoys. But.
Exactly. What is it about your wife that makes her an inspirational mother?
I think she just knows she's in tune with the kids to a point that I never would be able to. Like my kids would never have lunch at school if it was up to me. Like I would forget to make it.
I see what you're saying.
I know to take them to school, but she's on top of making sure they have what they need. She is the one who when we're about to go for a hike out at Crowder's Mountain says, "Did you pack snacks?" Oh, I guess that would be a good idea.
Better stop before we get there.
Yeah, she's she knows when they're growing and they need new clothes. Like she's always just on top of their needs to a point that like I can't even imagine to like I would be like, oh, that shirt's small. Let's go get a new one.
Yeah.
So
we've definitely had some of those moments. I was like, that's gonna be the last time you wear it, but you're gonna wear it this time.
It's okay when they're a year old. It's different when they're going to second grade and their shirt is a mid-range.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, she's definitely in tune with their needs, and she's always on top of it. I wouldn't be able to do it without her.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. And you already hit on it a little bit with the behind the closed doors conversation. Once they're able to start understanding, you can't have those conversations in front of one another. But usually if that is the case, that means there's something that we may have a disagreement on. So how do you handle those times when you all disagree on a specific parenting topic, right?
Yeah, it's happened.
I would imagine it happens for all of us.
When we were still trying to figure everything out, like how to discipline the children and stuff and what we would want to do. And I was upset about something and I overreacted, and she took John Paul's side, and we got into an argument in front of him about the methods that we were using. And that ended up into a later conversation between the two of us about being on the same page and being that team and everything. To be honest with you, as far as I can really think of, that's the only significant time that we've disagreed on a parenting style.
Yeah.
And we ended up having to have that conversation behind closed doors and come up with solutions and stuff like that to fix it. And I think since then we've been pretty good at it.
Yeah. So if like one parent implements something, even if you may disagree with that in the moment, you kind of just roll with it.
Yes.
And then maybe later.
And then address it after the fact.
I wasn't really 100% on board with that. Maybe you should think about it this way or whatever.
Yeah.
You had a really funny story that we or it really stuck in my head. You probably don't even remember.
I'm curious as to where we're going.
But it came to, I don't remember which one of your children, but they were trying to get something or do something that they weren't necessarily supposed to do, or that you didn't really want them to do, and your wife said something like, "Why do you choose to fight with them on this? Just give in." And then you said something like, about like, "I will die on this.
I will die on the hill." Yeah.
Yeah.
So my wife picks her battles, and I do not.
Okay.
If I make a decision, that is the way that it's going. And I think probably what the story you're thinking about is that one of my kids wanted something or wanted to do something, and I had said no, and he was like throwing a fit about it. It was something minor. I don't even remember what it was. This happens. And I was standing outside of his door while he was just sitting in there screaming and crying because he couldn't have it. And she was like, "Just give it to him." And I was like, "Nope, I will die on this hill." She's like, "You have to pick your battles." And she does. Like she'll pick her battles and she'll give in to some things, but I will. And for me, like the moment they start crying about it is when my like trench starts to get dug, because I will never give in to them crying. Like I want them to know that throwing a fit about something is not how you get something.
Yeah.
So that's why I fight a lot more on that.
Dig in on that.
I dig in.
That story just like stuck in my brain. I can't tell you how many times I've repeated it. And then what do you think that you really excel at being a husband in particular?
That's a great question.
Don't worry, the flip side's coming.
What do I excel at as being a husband? Yeah. I think I would probably, I don't know. I know I could do a lot better. Honestly, I could. I could do more for her.
Yeah.
And I think that comes down to, for a long time, you know, in our relationship, I was the breadwinner, especially after the kids were born. So I always felt like my job was to go work and bring home money to take care of our family. And that has changed. And when it did, it was insanely relieving. I absolutely love it. But we're still trying to figure out where some of our roles are. So there are still certain things that I could pick up more slack on, because she's now working, if not more than I am. Yeah. So, you know, but she's still cooking dinner every night. She's more often than not doing dishes and laundry and things like that. And I'm aware of that, and I'll try to, you know, if I know laundry needs to be done, I'll go in there and I'll do it, and I'll move and all that stuff. But then it ends up in a basket, and that's kind of where it stops for me.
Folding is not.
Folding, yeah. Now, recently, I've also been trying to teach the kids
how to range a roller.
Yeah. We'll work on that. Right now, we're still working on turning things right side out and somewhat folding them and getting them put away. And so I'm trying to pick up more of those like household burdens. Yeah. But I know that if she had her way, I would definitely be doing a lot more.
I gotcha.
But I'm also a very like particular person, and so we were actually having a conversation last night about how the dishes need to be placed in the kitchen when they're dirty, so that they could be. Was
this spurred by you or her?
By me.
Okay.
Because I was like, I need to do the dishes more often. They need to be put in a way that it would be efficient for the person washing them. So this was like a much longer conversation than it should have been about the organization of dirty dishes in our kitchen.
It may seem like that in the moment, but then if you figure out a system that works, like that conversation literally never has to happen again, and then you may save anywhere from 30 seconds to 5 minutes now doing the dishes. So maybe hour-long conversation. Not that long.
She's gonna get a kick out of it when she listens to this, because thinking this one, we both feel like we're right the way that we're supposed to do it, and we want the other person to conform to our way of doing it. So we're still trying to figure out this dish thing.
Dishes,
dishes I think next to money is probably the number one thing that causes arguments in relationships. That's made up.
Have you ever made IKEA furniture together?
No, I just do that. She does it. I was out of town and she bought some chairs and has done it. But typically with furniture, it just falls on me. If something needs to be built or constructed or something, it falls on me.
Got it.
But if I'm out of town for training or for work, then she can definitely do it and has in the past. She put together some chairs. She fixed a leak in our sink, a significant leak. She was super proud of herself for that one. It was awesome. I was like, great. Cool. I thought I was going to have to come back from Missouri.
Nice. So you already kind of hit on some of like what you feel like are areas that you need to improve in, showing up a little bit more around the house, taking care of chores. I think you said you listened to the first episode. You guys drink coffee, right?
Yes.
Cool. So you
remember the
way
I like
of the coffee?
The
so
way
while
the
the coffee's brewing, just like knock out as many tasks as you can, and like that's like a daily ritual. Then it'll work pretty good.
I liked it.
So after I heard that, I just gave up coffee altogether.
I normally set the coffee maker and then I'll go like take a shower and shave and all that kind of stuff. Gotcha. And it's ready by the time I come back. Yeah. But I actually do like really enjoy. We have a manual machine. Like at home on the regular day, it's the regular drip machine that you set, the Mr. Coffee. Mm-hmm. But a while back for camping, I bought a pour over system that you do yourself.
Okay.
And I really enjoy it. For me, it's almost therapeutic. Yeah. You're there the whole time. Like you boil the water and then you have to control the flow into the coffee grinds and all that. And so like a lot of times on weekends, I'll do that. So, and it takes longer, but my first like 45 minutes of like a Saturday, if we're not busy doing other things, is standing in the kitchen making that cup of coffee. Yeah. So for me, like I don't get to go read a book or meditate.
She drinks that cup of coffee.
She does. Yes.
Okay, cool.
She complains that is way stronger than the normal one. And I just think it tastes better.
Hey, you need more caffeine for the weekend.
Exactly.
It's going to be wild. What are some, you actually already kind of hit on this too, but mistakes and regrets that you have about your journey so far? You talked about with the younger one, not spending one-on-one time, but and then kind of whenever you guys had that one moment where you disagreed, but is there anything else that sticks out in your head as like a thing that you really regret the way that you handled with your children?
Yeah, definitely that time that she and I disagreed on the methods. Okay. And I was 100% wrong in that moment. Yeah. And she was right. Yeah. I just didn't like the ways that she told me she was right.
She's like, I don't have to be right. I just happen to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I really think those, as of today, those are probably the biggest. I think aside from that is my biggest regret is that I haven't taught them how to ride a bike yet. And that I know it kills me. We had the Strider bikes when we were younger, when they were younger, and it just never really caught on. We have a hilly drive, like a hilly yard and a gravel driveway. And so I'm also, and I get this from my mom, her nickname when we were growing up was Worry Wanda. And my wife tells me I'm also a Worry Wanda. So them riding a bike on a gravel driveway just makes me cringe with terror. Yeah. So it never really catches on. And in order for them to do anything like that, we got to go to a parking lot somewhere and somebody falls and skins a knee and and then we're walking back after only doing it for 5 minutes. And so that to me is the biggest thing, is that as much as I want them to spend time outside and have the childhood that I had growing up, they haven't done some of the things that I feel like they should have done already. Yeah. Like riding a bike.
Got it. Talking about your childhood growing up, your dad, some lessons that you've taken from your father.
No TV during the week.
No TV during the week.
Yeah, my father, when I was a child, he was great. We had an awesome relationship when I was the boy's age and stuff. Yeah. Some of my best memories are of my dad taking me to school in the morning. And that's something I also do with my kids. Like I take them to school in the morning. I feel like it's an awesome time to spend with them. Talk to them before their day gets started, kind of get them pumped up for it. My dad did the same thing with me. During my teenage years, our relationship was pretty bad. I mean, bad's probably not the right. It was strained.
Yeah.
There was some outside influences going on there, and then once I was a young adult, he and I had sat down and had a conversation, and our relationship is awesome now. Like
cool.
we're really good relationship. Father, son, friends. We do a lot of things together. It's great. I want to not have that strained period, but I know teenagers that happens. So, but yeah, I think just being present is probably, that's a really long way to get to answer your question.
Gotcha.
But my father was present,
Uh-huh.
and that was important.
Okay.
At least for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting that you say that, because literally before you got here, I was talking with Chastity and Monica, and they're like, I was asking them like, what do you identify as like problems with fathers today? And it was like not being present.
Yeah.
Being caught up in things that in the end like really don't matter.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's cool that you said that.
Yeah, and to your point is that just because somebody is still around, we do, and like we talked about earlier with like that work-life balance, like you have to find that point.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you hear from older guys that's their biggest regret, is that they worked so hard to advance their career and bring home that money for their family, but then in the end, like they don't have that relationship with their kid that they wish they did. So
yeah, and I have some friends that they've got children that are getting older, later teenage years, and they've literally figured out like how many days that they have left with a child, and it is a strikingly small number, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and then they figured out, they kind of used some math to figure out like how many days they're going to get with that kid after they leave the home, and it's like it will take 40 years to get the same amount of time that I'm going to get this year with my child after they leave home, right? And so they're just like really being intentional now. Although like earlier in life, you're like just really getting after it to try to advance that career. But then like, it's like, oh shoot, they're not going to be here forever. Like,
right.
Now's the time.
Right.
So that's cool that we got on this topic here.
I do want to jump back to the question you said before about things that, lessons that I learned from my father. Something that I thought about that I want to do with my children is that me and my dad were able to travel a lot when I was an older teenager.
What do you mean by travel?
So my dad's job took him all over the world.
Okay.
He would periodically go to different places and essentially build houses, schools, churches for people after like natural disasters and stuff like that. And I had the opportunity many times in my life to go with him. But when I was 16, 17, 18 years old, I got to do quite a few of those. And I think some of that traveling with him in his world was the time that we actually built that relationship. In fact, that conversation that he and I had about our relationship and what made it better happened in Tonga in the South Pacific.
Wow.
So I want to be able to do that with my kids as well. Like I've got some plans for when they get older. Who knows if it's going to happen or not, but to do things with them individually as they're kind of finishing up high school before they go on their own, to take each one of them on their own to a trip. So like I got to go when I think I was 17 with him to Tonga. And then the year after that, my brother got to go with him to Fiji. So they got to do that one-on-one time as well.
Super cool. Yeah. And then when I was talking with Greg Law in a previous episode, we talked about, when and where is a good time to have tough conversations with your child, and, around a campfire deep in the woods. And then for me, some tough conversations happened with me and my dad when we I had a job, or I really wanted to move to Texas. And so we drove from Kentucky down to Texas and did like a whole tour of Texas.
Yeah.
Texas is a big state. It's a lot of time to be in a car with somebody. And I was not in a good mental place at the beginning of the trip, and we definitely hashed out some stuff on that trip. And just, a week in the car with a parent. I mean, I suppose it could go really poorly too. But for us, fortunately, we had some really good conversations.
Yeah, we did that. We drove from South Carolina to California in my Nissan hardbody, which was a single cab. I mean, there's no room you can't get away.
Yeah. So that and then traveling too, again, changing the atmospheres, it allows, I think, anybody's brain to kind of think differently. If you want to break, I heard a really interesting statistic that is completely off the wall, but relevant in that, like, changing your atmosphere, is that a lot of guys that came back from Vietnam, like a staggering number of soldiers that went to Vietnam, like, tried heroin, right? And like a strikingly low number of those guys, like, maintain that addiction when they came home. And the reason being was like just the change of atmosphere versus like somebody that tries something as strong as heroin here. But if you maintain that same atmosphere, you're trying to break that habit, you have the same triggers and cues and things.
You're continually following those the things that pushed you into it in the first place.
I thought that was very, very...
That's interesting.
Very interesting. Let's dive into your job a little bit, because you've done some like really cool stuff.
Okay.
And as an interrogator, and just walk us through some like the really cool moments from your career in the military.
When I started as a counterintelligence agent back in 2004. And at the time, they would allow somebody into that job off the street. I walked into the recruiter's office and said, I want to do this job. He saw me coming from a mile away. So I didn't get any special extra incentives or whatever. I went down and was trained in the job. And 6 months after I finished basic training, I was in Afghanistan for the first time.
Whoa.
There's definitely some interesting stories from there. Yeah. I don't necessarily want to like share them on the podcast or anything.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know your audience. But then I had the opportunity to do a lot when I was on active duty. I had that initial MOS, or military occupational specialty, and then in 2006 I was able to go to the interrogator course to add that to my skill set. They were doing a program at the time, because the training for CI and for the interrogators was half of it was the same. We did half of it together. So they allowed us to go back to Fort Huachuca and take the second half of the course, or technically the first half of the course, for the interrogation side. So it gave us the opportunity to be able to use those skills as well. The deployment following that, I did get to work in the Bagram detention facility for a short period of time. I did not enjoy that very much. There's no windows, and by design, it's a very intimidating place to be. But then I was able to get back out in the field and focus more on the counterintelligence aspect of it. While overseas, during my third trip, I had the opportunity to test a lot of new technologies that were coming out. This would have been about 2008. And so I got to spend a lot of time just playing with new tech that companies were trying to develop and sell to the military. So we got to run around Bagram testing all these things and seeing how they worked, and if they lived up to what the company said they were going to do and stuff like that. So that was a really cool experience. After that third trip, I decided to leave the Army. I went to college. Like I said before, I went to Brevard. That's where I met my wife and everything. And I spent a couple of years in the reserves at that time, but then I left the military altogether. We moved down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And in 2016, right after my oldest son was born, the whole Gulf Coast flooded really bad. I remember he was probably 2 months old. And I would go out, I would leave my house, pouring down rain. It was like the third day it had been raining, and going over to the coulee, the stream behind the house, and just seeing how much higher it was to the edge of it, and of watching, and go out there periodically and check and see where it was. We got really lucky. The one near us never broke the banks, but all over Baton Rouge and Lafayette they did. And we ended up spending about a week and a half helping our friends clean their houses out, rip out carpet, sheetrock, throw away family heirlooms and stuff that all been ruined by the flood.
Yeah.
I went one day with my boss to our office in this industrial park, and it was knee deep down the road to get to it. But our office was actually on a slight hill, and it was the only building in the block that didn't get water damage on the inside of it. So we got pretty lucky with work.
Nice.
And then I got to see, this was my first exposure to the National Guard. And it's the reason why I ended up in the National Guard is because even though I'd spent a lot of time in the military, in the Army, I didn't really understand what the National Guard did. But I got to see them, help people that were stranded and do all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And so it kind of got the wheels turning. And my wife and I sat down and had some conversations about coming back in. And they took me back and gave me the same job that I had before and let me kind of go back at it. And I got the opportunity after I came back to work some hurricanes. I was the parish liaison for the National Guard for West Baton Rouge Parish.
Oh, cool.
And in Louisiana, parishes are like counties. It's just they call them parishes. They're set up slightly different. Yeah. So I got to ride out a hurricane in West Baton Rouge Parish on the banks of the Mississippi River in the Emergency Operations Center, which is also the 911 call center. Talking with the mayors of all the little towns in the parish and everything, and relaying what their needs were back to the National Guard. It was a really great opportunity. Gotcha. And then right after that, we came back to North Carolina, and then I got pulled in for COVID duty, and so did some work there, and then I ended up working at MEPS, taking people's temperatures and screening them for COVID symptoms before they would process with the military. And that's how I ended up getting into the recruiting gig because I realized that I really enjoyed it. Yeah. I missed doing the military thing every day. Yeah. My wife, I came home one day and she was like, "You're so much happier doing this. So you need to do this every day for, a job." Or just working for the National Guard. Okay. She said, my attitude was just better when I got off work as opposed to doing the soil and water sampling for pipelines. Yeah. It's probably less exhausting.
The soil and water samples?
No, doing the National Guard stuff. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Less time, fighting spiders and snakes all day. Hey. So she kind of encouraged me to apply for the full-time position and everything. Awesome. I've done a lot in my career. People tell me all the time it's an interesting background, and 100%. I probably don't think that as much because I experienced it. Yeah. And I'm probably leaving out a lot.
Yeah. And I appreciate you not going too deep into subjects. But a lot of fathers that are going to be listening to this have children that are going to be at an age that are very close to being eligible for military service. So I'm going to shameless plug here. And I've had a crazy ride with my military experience. I feel like it may be the only one with this experience, but it hasn't been the most positive. But I can say that my experience in and around the North Carolina National Guard, which I was never able to officially jump to, was extremely positive. And the guys that I was interfacing with were just rock solid, yourself included with that. But can you explain, especially for those with kids in high school, what that opportunity is, and outside of just going, infantry, right? That's not the only thing that the military does and the National Guard does, which it could be the right thing for a lot of kids to take that path. But if you want to take a couple minutes here just to kind of walk us through
absolutely
what that progression could look like, and what the benefits are.
Kind of what you're hitting on there, a lot of people have the idea of what the military is based on what they see in movies and stuff like that. We have over 100 different jobs in the North Carolina National Guard. Infantry is only one of those. As far as combat MOSs, there's only a small handful. Most of those jobs are in support roles. We have everything from truck drivers to welders to logistics and everything. You can do a lot, and a lot of our jobs do have value on the civilian side. We do have infantry, we do have combat arms, and overseas deployments are part of the job description. We are part of the Army. We train to the same standard. We do the same job that they do. The thing for me that really appealed about the National Guard was the community service aspect of it, being able to help out in times of need. Like I said, I was exposed to that in 2016 after the floods. And even as we speak right now, with the hurricane coming up from Florida, we've got some people that were activated out of the various units and sent down towards the coast to see if there's going to be a need. To be quite honest with you, they're probably going to turn around and come right back after the storm passes. It doesn't seem like it's going to be that bad up here. But for me, that community service aspect is definitely a big part of it.
Yeah.
So it's a super instilled value in myself. I definitely get that from my dad and the work that he did growing up. He and I just had different ideas. Community service. Yeah. We just have different ideas of how to implement that value. But that is definitely something that we do share. So that is why I chose to do this as a job and then eventually as a career. What the National Guard offers people is the opportunity to have that military service, that military training and that experience and the camaraderie and the benefits and all that kind of stuff, but while continuing to serve at home and do the things that you already had planned. Right. I get all the time, I call a parent and I say, I would like to speak to you about, so-and-so joining the National Guard. And the answer is they're going to college. And then if I don't get hung up on, the response is, I want them to go to college. That's our goal. Yeah. Our soldiers, they work typically 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year during the summer. Yeah. Plus emergency response and stuff like that. And in exchange for that, they receive a lot of money for school. Yeah. For college, they get paid directly in their pocket to go to school. They receive a monthly paycheck from us for the work they do. We pay for their tuition. We have a reimbursement program called the North Carolina Tuition Assistance Program that reimburses 100% of tuition fees at community colleges. So I work in Gaston County. If somebody wanted to go to Gaston College, they can do that with the NC TAP. And then they don't have to worry about taking out loans and stuff like that. That same program does pay certain percentages of your tuition at the larger schools and universities like UNC Charlotte. Then they also have access to the federal tuition assistance, the Montgomery GI Bill, all those things. Yeah. So there's a lot of our soldiers who are getting associates and bachelor's degrees without taking out student loans and going into debt over that. Yeah. Which is,
also potentially getting paid.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know people have concern about being pulled out of school for different things, if there's a hurricane. But to be honest with you, they're very rarely are full on activations unless something's really, really bad.
And in which case you want to be involved anyway.
Right. So I think from the unit that I work near, there were 4 people that were going for this one. So it's not a lot. People had the opportunity to say, no, I'm in school, or I got work or something like that going on with it.
And another really cool thing too is that you can't do in most other active duty positions is, correct me if I'm wrong, but October of your junior year, if you are 17, you can enlist in the North Carolina National Guard.
Yes.
Junior year in high school.
Yes.
And then you go and drill and start getting paid to drill.
Absolutely.
Starting in November, or is it October?
Well, so it would be the month after you join.
Okay, so it'd be November.
Yeah, so we can typically start recruiting juniors around October because you have to be able to go to training within a certain time of joining.
And your time in service literally starts
then.
Right then.
Yep.
And then your summer between junior senior year, you go to basic training.
Yes.
Senior year, you continue to drill, continue to get paid once a month. And then the next year, you go to AIT or get trained.
Yeah, AIT,
your MOS.
Job training, yep. And so you're earning that paycheck, you're getting your time in service, you're actually starting at 17 years old, you're getting your time in grade. So even if you come in...
And then the commitment, if you were to join that October
it's 6 years.
Year, it's a 6-year commitment.
It's a 6-year commitment, which means that by the time your commitment with the National Guard is ending, you're graduating from college.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah. So somebody can come in when they're 17 years old, a junior in high school. They can have 2 years off that contract by the time they graduate from high school, which means that they're down to 4.5 years, go to college, get all their college stuff, their college benefits, all that stuff paid for. And by the time they're graduating college can say, hey, thanks for the benefits, I'm out of here, or hey, I've really enjoyed this, I want to keep going.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. People could retire you can retire from the National Guard when you're 37 years old.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
It's insane.
And then,
younger than I am right now.
Yeah, that is impressive. And then with that, the networking is also really cool within the National Guard, because it's all people that are within, a semi-close community geographically, and all different types of professions are accounted for within that, considering their day jobs, right? So
absolutely.
If you're a young individual, a go-getter, and you're really getting after it, it's very possible that those first jobs and connections and just lessons from other leaders could come from that network that you meet on drill weekend.
Yeah, not only do you get the experience of different backgrounds, but you also have the opportunity to network even for your civilian side as well.
Yeah.
I've known lots of people who have gotten their jobs and careers off the ground from connections they've made in the National Guard. Mm-hmm. So before I started recruiting, the unit I was in, there was a soldier who started a trucking company, and he was hiring other soldiers to drive his trucks for him, which was awesome. And so he was literally getting people jobs through the connections that people were making inside the National Guard.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We also do have an employment center, and companies from the area will come to us specifically saying, hey, we're looking for these kind of people, we're filling these kind of positions. And so when soldiers are looking for work, the employment center will help them work on their resumes, help them write their resumes, and has leads for jobs out there.
If you'll send me a link to that, because that's going to be really valuable for a lot of our listeners too, because a lot of these guys are business owners.
Absolutely.
And I hear it all the time, like, people that we're hiring, there's not the level of discipline that there used to be. And it's like, well, hey, you thought about reaching into the National Guard and pulling those guys out, and they already have their healthcare benefits.
Yeah, I'll definitely get you the contact information.
That'd be really helpful. All right. So at the end of each episode, I like to do something called Father's Challenge.
Okay.
All right. So what it is it can be a challenge that you're going to give not only to yourself, but to the rest of our listeners. And it can literally be whatever you've dreamt up. Okay. It could be socially, it could be physically, nutrition, with your kids, with your spouse. Just a challenge to push fathers outside their comfort zone just a little bit, and for us to kind of hold each other accountable until we get the next challenge from the next father on the podcast.
I've already thought about this.
Perfect.
We've already kind of touched on it a little bit.
Okay.
But it's do more things for your wife so that she can go have time for herself.
Okay.
So, my wife enjoys going and reading a book, sitting in the bed with it quiet. And so my challenge for me and for the listeners is to do more things around the house, whether it's the dishes or the laundry or, take the kids to the park and get them out of the house for a little while, but do some things for your wife so that she can have time to take care of herself how she wants to take care of herself. Nice. Whatever that is. Give her some freedom. Yeah. Because especially with my wife, like, she doesn't get very much. She is 100% a mom all the time and a professional working a full-time job at the same time. So that's the challenge.
Got it.
Let her have her time.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And is there something that we can do, problem that you're dealing with maybe currently that we can be praying for or thinking about to help serve you in some way, or you and your family?
Just that we're not screwing our kids up. I just send us good vibes that cool. we're hopefully doing the right thing, and we don't figure out 15 years from now that we made wrong decisions on when they can watch TV.
Perfect. Awesome. And then if somebody's heard something in this and they really would like to get in touch with you, is there a way that you prefer for us to do that, whether it be email, LinkedIn, Facebook.
Yeah, so
Carrier pigeon.
Carrier pigeon, definitely. That's I'm not very active.
Show up unannounced.
Just come to my office. I'm not very active on social media. I don't think I've logged into LinkedIn in like 2 or 3 years.
Perfect.
But because of my job, I do try to stay up on Instagram because that's where most of my audience is.
Okay.
So honestly, the best way to reach me is my Instagram.
Okay.
And my handle is Sergeant McGuire. It's just sgt.mcguire.
Okay. Cool.
McGuire.
We'll link that up as well. Cool. Well, I really appreciate your time. This was super fun. I'm glad that you were able to make it happen on short notice.
Yeah,
too.
I appreciate it.
So anything you'd like to leave us with in closing?
No, just be there for your kids. Just be present, really. A lot of people are going to do things the way that they want to do them. And I have different styles than the people around me. And it's going to come from different experience and stuff. But I think the most important thing that you can do is just be there, be present for your kids, be involved in their lives, and just let them remember this time as you being a part of it, not the guy that shows up at the end of the day and yells at them, even though it happens sometimes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, and I almost forgot. We have to read the letter from your wife.
Did it come in?
Yep. Let's go ahead and read that now.
Okay.
All right. So this is what Lillian had to say.
It looks long.
It is long.
She's a writer. Did I tell you that? We haven't talked about that before.
No, I don't think so.
She was not now, but for a while, like when she was going back to work, like she wrote, like that was her job. People would hire her to write their copy on their websites and all sorts of stuff.
Nice.
So she's much better with words than me.
You may have saved that for after.
Oh yeah, because like, what if it's not good? No.
Exactly. So this is a cool part because you have no idea what she said here. And it says, "Dear Wesley, when I was first asked to write this letter, I struggled with the term inspirational and ways to accurately portray how John is an inspirational father. What does being inspirational look like in a person, not just a father? Does one aspire to be inspirational, or is it just inherent and natural? I have always felt like there is a clear differentiation between people who try a bit too hard and those who don't need to try, they just are. For John, it's natural. He has an internal drive and ambition that cannot be taught. I believe he was born knowing his purpose, to help, teach, and guide others to be their best selves and live their own purpose while being of service to others. He indirectly permeates these ideals into our children every day. To me, the selflessness of being of service as a father and as a soldier is the ultimate form of love and inspiration. Watching our children learn firsthand what it means to serve others, have it be second nature to them, speaks volumes. There is a quote I often refer back to that I think accurately portrays why I find selflessness so awe-inspiring. The quote is, "The bravest are surely those who have the clearest vision of what is before them, glory and danger alike, and yet notwithstanding. Go out to meet it." Don't know how to pronounce that.
I guess that's who wrote the...
Unknown author. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Watching him pioneer fatherhood has been a special experience. He had no idea how to navigate or even begin knowing how to do life with a newborn or a toddler. But his sense of duty to raise good humans has always overshadowed any doubt he had in himself. Of course, me being alongside him, knowing how to change diapers and how to feed children helped. Do you think I could give him all the credit? This letter is not long, but not because there's a lack of things to talk about. There are several things that make him an inspiration to countless people, friends, other parents, and community members alike. His urge to do the right thing and strong moral compass make him a model father. His desire to bring our boys up having a clear vision of what is just and right and teaching them to always be of service to others will be his legacy? Sincerely, William McGuire.
I guess I need to get her some flowers on the way home. I think she said everything I was trying to say, but in a much better way. You should just interview her.
This is the inspired father by their wives.
By their wives, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you again for coming on here, and your lovely wife for participating as well. This was super fun.
Absolutely.
Do you have any other thoughts on that?
No, I think, I got to go find a flower shop on my way home and do something nice for her.
Exactly. Cool. Well, I'm excited for this to come out, and again, thanks again.
I appreciate it.